Well, good morning, everybody, and good morning to everybody on the stream. Are we ready to rock and roll? Good. Morning. Bright, sunny Sunday morning. Well, not so sunny, but bright. So we've got some different talks today, really. I guess yesterday afternoon was all about reduced bandwidth, and today we tried to make it a bit more different. One of the comments was it would be good to try and do stuff, not so much. We're not just the British Amateur Television Transmitting Club. We also do bits inside the studio, and so this is a little bit more around that, although we have got some satellite talks as well this morning. Couple of housekeeping points. Don't forget to pay on me your £10 to Finningley Club. So it's £10 yesterday and £10 today if you're here for both days. £10 is the admission, but also buys you free tea and coffee and lunch. So please make sure that you pay the guys in the kitchen. Building 2, for those of you who haven't found it yet, it's just round the corner. Well worth a visit. Everything in there, there's some stalls with call signs on. Please make sure that if you take anything, you pay the stall holder. And down at the bottom belongs to Finningley Radio Club. You're more than welcome to have a look on the heap and pull things out, but it's not there just for the taking. It's there for sale. So if you do find something you want, go and see Kevin and make him an unreasonable offer, and I'm sure he will take it. There we go, 10 bob and a conker. Dave wants to say a few words. We kind of slipped up yesterday, didn't we, Dave?
We did slightly, yeah. Good morning, all. Dave, GHEKQ, contest manager. For the Summer Fun contest in June, we offered a prize for the longest distance reduced bandwidth TV contact.
And prizes for guessing who won it?
And we should have presented it yesterday, but Rob and Terry will get the prize sent to them in the next couple of days.
You can give it to that gentleman.
Okay. We'll look at that, Eddie, and get something to you. But their contact, I think it was 117 kilometres, was the winning contact. So well done to them for that. While we're talking about contests and activity weekends, next weekend is an activity weekend. It's also a contest in the Netherlands, so let's pray for good conditions. You might actually get across the water. From 1300 local on Saturday through to 1900 local on Sunday. We're not running it as a formal contest. It's just a time when, if you can get out portable, please go out portable. Please encourage your friends to get on the air. If you want us to know what you've done, send me an email of what contacts you've had, or put it on dxspot.tv. I'll do a write-up in the next but one CQTV of who was active. Might even make the next CQTV, actually. Yeah, it should make the next CQTV of who was active. So please send me an email to contests@batc.org.uk telling me what you did over the weekend. But the important thing is we get on the air. Thanks very much.
Yeah, it's an activity weekend, so that means make that special effort just to get on your local repeater. If you're going to do it next weekend. It'd be great to have a bit of activity. We're just trying to lift the level of activity. There's a lot of interest in what we're doing, but we're not sure people are getting on the air. So we're just trying to encourage that. Okay, right. So let's start the proceedings this morning. I'm looking. Where's he gone? Oh, he's there. Yes. So Chris has kindly volunteered to come and talk to us about a couple of things which are surrounded in a bit of black magic, certainly as far as I'm concerned. We keep on hearing this FFMpeg thing talked about, and then later on this afternoon there's another one of these things that people are using but need a little bit more explanation, I think, called vMix. So Chris has kindly volunteered, and I think there's going to be a CQTV article to follow. So let's big hand for Chris. MW0LLK.
Good morning. I felt it was a bit early this morning, earlier than yesterday. I did wonder if the clocks had gone back a bit. It's shocking really, isn't it, getting up this early on a Sunday. Anyway, as Noel says, I'm going to talk about FFmpeg. And the quote there isn't from me, and I will come back to it, but it is a fairly apt description. I'm just moving so you guys can see as well. In that it is a bit of a Swiss Army knife. It's all things to all men in terms of AVI. So I use it a lot, and I would commend it to you. First question, of course, is what is it? Well, you can get a bit technical and say, well, it's a manager, it's an interface, it's a wrapper around all these different programs, which it is. The next line scares people. It's a command line program. Oh my God, they all say. There's no lovely graphical user interface. You have to actually type, which puts people off, but don't let it, you know. It runs on pretty much anything. It came from the Linux stable, if you like, GNU Linux background where everything's open source. But it now is available on all platforms pretty much. And of course it has a lot of uses, hence the Swiss Army knife of AV quote there. This is how FFmpeg, if you go to their website, describes themselves. I've put the address there, I'm sure it'll be online somewhere if you want to look at it. The leading multimedia framework able to decode, encode, transcode, multiplex, demultiplex, stream, filter and play pretty much anything. And I'll demonstrate the pretty much anything in a moment. That humans and machines have created. We were talking at breakfast this morning, myself and David, and we were just touching on how things have changed and how short a window there is in kind of human development where we have actually transmitted or broadcast analog signals that an alien intelligence would be able to easily understand. Because as we move into digital, of course, it's all just noise again if you're listening on an analog set, so it's kind of interesting. But this thing will actually decode and play most of the digital things. So what we should be doing is sending a copy of FFmpeg out to outer space. I think could be helpful for them. So the next CD that goes on one of these Voyager type probes should probably have a copy of it with it. Anyway, I said I'd come back to the Swiss Army knife. It's actually from an excellent article written by this chap, Fabio Sonati. That's his quote, and again the address is there if you're interested. It's in about 4 or 5 different parts, and it's a brilliant introduction. Goes into quite a lot of detail, gives a lot of good examples of how to use the thing. Far better than I could write in a month of Sundays. So, what's the history? Well, FFmpeg was the original project. Suite of programs. There's more than just FFmpeg. There's FFplay and a few other accessories. FFplay does what it says on the tin. It plays video or audio. It's a player. Command line again, which confuses people. How do you play stuff on the command line? But it works. FFmpeg is the tool that is the universal change things, communicate one thing in one format to another thing in another format type of thing. A few years ago, libav spun off. There were, I think, political differences between the various members of the consortium of open source authors as to how they should be proceeding. So a splinter group split off and started producing far more regular releases and just trying to push things forward a bit faster than the FFmpeg group were doing. The trouble now is that we've got 2 fairly similar programs that are pretty compatible in terms of the commands you give to them, but slightly different. An example of that is that this discussion could have been entitled libav, the Swiss Army knife of internet streaming, but it was FFmpeg that actually worked for me for what I'm trying to do with it, so it's FFmpeg that I'm talking about. It could have been any of these 3 that actually was the thing that worked, but for what I'm doing, FFmpeg is the one. Finally, GStreamer, much the same, except you get a full programming API, so you can build applications that call these things directly using GStreamer as a library, whereas FFmpeg, you could use FFmpeg in your application if you were building an application, but normally use the libraries behind it, because this is just an interface layer, if you like. So those are the three different things, and in fact some software you'll see, perhaps if you're looking at vMix later, will make use of some of these things. vMix actually calls FFMpeg. There's another one, Webcam Studio, which is a Linux application, and the output for that particular video mixer, if you like, has a choice. You can tick one of three boxes as to which of these three libraries it's going to use, and that's quite useful to be able to change and choose for depending what you're actually sending and to where. If you want a true transport stream that will work with digital TV, then my experience is you need FFmpeg. So you will see all three of them come up. So why did I want to use FFmpeg or something software? Well, as it says there, I got a DATV Express for Christmas. Well, I arranged to have one for Christmas, as we all do. And the HVR board that I had, just it was a software encoder. It wasn't a hardware encoder. So I broke the first rule, which is read the system requirements before you buy anything. And although I read them, I confidently assumed the board I had would do what I needed, and it didn't. So I went on eBay, ordered a board that should have done, except it wasn't the board that I ordered. And by the time all this had gone by, I'd actually been messing about with FFmpeg enough that I'd started to get the first glimmer of hope in that things were very broken up pictures were starting to appear on the monitor. So I was that keen. I just wanted to make it work, and eventually found the right option on the command line and got the thing to go. So what's the concept? Well, a couple of video sources. If only mine were like that, it'd be lovely, wouldn't it? A laptop running vMix, which we'll be talking about this afternoon. Quite keen to use vMix. I've been using it for a while on FM, and it's got a lot going for it. I don't know if you saw last edition, was it, the article I wrote, where I was talking about the things we've been messing about with in North Wales, bringing people in on DVB-T, putting them on a screen behind me, introducing kind of swapping over, swapping roles, just generally messing about with green screen and multi-band working to make it interesting, really. John's one of our victims. He had to watch us doing all this messing about, but I think it worked. Delays were a bit interesting, inevitably, with digital TV, but it kind of worked. So that was running on the main laptop in Windows. Of course, DATV Express requires Linux, so that was running on a second laptop. And somewhere in between the two, we had to encode and produce an Mpeg transport stream with Mpeg 2 video in it. So that was done using FFmpeg on the main laptop. Secondary laptop just ran the Express server software, UDP link across between the two. I'll touch on UDP links a bit later, and then out through the Express board and the little PA. That pretty much, minus the second laptop, is what's running at the far end, so you can see it in action if you haven't already. Command lines, people are very scared of them. I don't know why. They work. They came before GUIs, and they've always worked. Gets a bit confusing with programs like this. That is a key point. I don't know whether it still applies, but certainly my personal experience is that you have a wonderful GUI, but it just hasn't actually implemented the option. When I say GUI, graphical user interface, it hasn't implemented the particular option you want to use, so you throw it away and go back to the command line anyway. It's so frustrating. Or you write your own like Jean-Pierre has. The nature of open source development is you have groups of people, some doing one bit, some doing another bit, and they're all kind of leapfrogging and trying to keep pace with each other. But the GUI is always the last thing to get updated, so inevitably the new feature that comes out you can't access through the GUI. Frustrating. So it's worth learning to use the command line, and on Windows at least, stick a /? on the end of anything, and it'll usually tell you something useful. In this case, it's actually -H for FFmpeg. I don't know if it'll do it with a /? I don't know. But similarly, if you're on Linux, -H or --help will get you there, and it'll spiel forth with something useful, hopefully. Open source, just really defining what it is. It's been written by enthusiasts such as ourselves in much the same way as people like Brian devote time, and Jean-Pierre and others here, to furthering the hobby, the experience. People write software for it. They must be mad. I'm not calling you mad. It is free generally in price terms, although people can charge for the copying but not for the actual software. So years ago, before the internet was a big thing, you used to actually buy CDs full of open source software and you had to pay for the CD itself. Might have cost you a £5 or something, which was basically just to cover the cost of copying. But the main thing is it's free to use. You're free to use it as you like. Just check the terms of licenses. FFmpeg can be under 2 different licenses, which is confusing. If you're incorporating it in a product, you do need to be aware of these things. If you're just using it for yourself, just use it. It works. The GNU LGPL, the lesser, what the heck's GPL stand for? Can't remember. General purpose license, is it? Yeah. So a mental block there. I think it's general purpose license. I may be wrong. Might be general personal, whatever. Anyway, if you really want to, you can read up on all the licenses on gnu.org and on the FFmpeg site. But whatever. That's a scary shot. That's the file formats it under. It actually carries on. It's fallen off the bottom of the slide. Sod's Law says you'll get a file that just won't work with it, but hey, it covers an awful lot of them. Similarly, it will encode and decode an awful lot of different formats. Somewhere in there it says Mpeg 2, I'm sure. I've spotted Mpeg 4. We could have a game. I could read them all off if you like. No. Life is too short and it's Sunday morning. So what do we do with it? Well, you can use it at its simplest in static mode, where you're just copying a file from one format to another format and you're changing something. Might be the resolution, might be the actual file format, might be the colour space, whatever. You're changing something. So you're going, where's that pointer? I'm the new boy, so I only get the little one. You're basically going from file to file. So
The gun is on the table.
oh, am I qualified to use it though? Wouldn't want to blind anyone. If you're capturing, then you're going from a device or a stream of some sort into a file. It does kind of work, the shadow. From there I'm not sure that you get the parallax error or not, but whatever. So capturing is where you're actually taking a video input of some sort. It might be from a camera, it might be an analog signal from somewhere, it might be a stream coming in from elsewhere, and sticking it into a file. FFmpeg will do that quite happily. Render, of course, is the opposite. You're taking a file and playing it back to some device, typically a screen, or possibly sending it off to a remote stream to TV transmitter or whatever. So rendering is basically the player aspect of it. FFmpeg will play and FFplay will play. That's confusing. But FFplay is designed to play locally on your monitor. FFmpeg will play and render it out to any device that you've got. And then streaming, where you've just got streams coming in and going out, and you're doing some kind of file conversion, format conversion, whatever. In my case, I've got a stream coming in from the camera on the tripod down the end there, which is a DV stream, digital video stream across Firewire, and then I'm streaming it back out after a load of processing, back out to the DATV Express via a UDP stream to the DATV Express software. So that in fact is a streaming application of FFmpeg. We're all happy with what a stream is, I'm assuming. There's a few puzzled looks. Data going in serial format, in effect. So what's the process? Well, you decode the video, you decode the audio from whatever your input is, whether it's a file or a stream. You process it in some way, waving at the right place, and then you encode it and perhaps put it in a wrapper such as a transport stream. The transport stream being the fundamental thing that goes into our transmitter to actually send across the ether, so to speak. So that's in a nutshell what FFmpeg does. That bit there is the bit that's kind of interesting, because you can do all sorts of processing, resizing, reshaping, changing colour spaces, adding graphics and text, all sorts. And of course the decoding and encoding there depends what format you've got coming in and going out. It's an interesting aspect. We touched on this yesterday, Frank and I, just talking about how you support different clients from mobile phones to high resolution screens when you're streaming video from the internet. And of course what they do is they'll put multiple content, multiple video channels at different resolutions of the same video clip into one big file. So the file that YouTube ends up with on their servers, for example, I'll give an example, there are other purveyors of video online of course, will actually have several different resolutions all within the same wrapper file. And when you request it, or your web client on your phone or whatever requests it, it'll say what its screen resolution is, and their server will have the smarts to pull out the bit that you need and just stream that bit to you. Strangely enough, using FFmpeg, this is where a lot of the stuff in FFmpeg came from, was the development of YouTube and what they needed. You can stick other things in there though. You can stick in extra audio channels, different languages for Jean-Pierre and others, subtitles, program info, all sorts. And of course this is where the program guide comes from on your TV, is the program info is just sent as a data stream within the within the wrapper, along with everything else. So what do we use it for? Well, resizing, changing the format, processing it in some way, both video and audio, or individually. Upsizing and downsizing, changing the aspect ratio and so forth, changing the colour space, different cameras, obviously different outputs, all need different colour spaces. That in fact was the thing that held me up the most with getting DATV Express started. I had to get the right colour spaces, it turned out. That was the last tick box and away it went. Up and down sampling audio. Noel was talking, I think, was it Noel or was it Brian? Talking about reducing, it was Brian wasn't it? Reducing the audio bit rate. And of course FFmpeg can do all that kind of thing. You can stick in CD quality 44.1 kilohertz sampled stereo and pull out 8K mono if that's what you want it to do. So it's a good tool for changing all the audio formats as well. And at the end of the day, that's the key to it, the DATV transmitter. I don't know if you use FFmpeg in the software on the Pi. That's all hardware encoded, is it? Yeah, it's hardware encoder and that. More things you can do with it, mixing it. Believe it or not, you can actually use FFmpeg as a mixer. I think SnowMix uses it under the hood as a mixer. More likely they use GStreamer, but you can actually have multiple inputs and combine them in some way. Typically you'll be doing green screen or something with it, mapping out the green and bringing something else in as a background. That's an interesting one. So you can have a JPEG of a test card, say, point FFmpeg at it, and out comes this lovely video stream, which you can view and you can send somewhere and all the rest of it. It's a really handy way of generating titles, overlays, whatever, just from static images. Subtitles and things also can be added, and I'll stop. It goes on. There's so much you can do with it. I haven't even explored a tenth of it, probably not even a hundredth of it. It's a phenomenal program. There's the gotcha. It does need something a bit better than the old Pentium 2 that you have on the desk. You need a reasonably modern computer. This is from one of the mass market, low price supermarkets. I buy machines from there because they have a 3-year warranty, which I think is a pretty cool idea. But it does mean I'm buying below the top end of the market. I'm buying the mass market thing, and it's 4 years old. But it'll run vMix, it'll run FFmpeg, it'll do the whole thing, it'll drive DATV Express, so that I can take out portable using the built-in camera, running vMix, and there's my portable station, just that and the Express board. Brilliant. And it's perfectly capable of doing the job. There's nothing special in it, there's no special accelerators or anything. It's an i3, it's 4 years old. Compared to a hardware encoder, I mean, you can pay hundreds of pounds for these lovely 1U boxes, thousands if you get the professional end of the market. This is free, and it's available. Just go and download it. I'll come on to that. How are we doing? When's my cut-off? 10-ish? Yeah. Okay. That gives you some idea of how much FFmpeg actually uses. Little netbooks, uses a fair bit of the processor. This thing, it's using less than 5% of the CPU, so no problem at all. However, task priority, if something grabs the priority, Windows decides to do an update, for example, bane of my life, that one, it can stutter and fall over and slow down. But you can change task priorities, and the article will cover that a little bit. There's a way of launching a Windows task to say it's high priority. You can do it in Task Manager, I know, but then you have to go in and do it every time, whereas if you launch it from a batch file and you put the requisite prefix on, it'll do it. Right, here's an example. I've already done the change directory, so I've just got to remember the rest of that. We've got FFMpeg. Can't see what I'm doing here. This is about a minute long, the MP4 I'm going to play with here. Cross fingers and hope I've typed that correctly. And there you see it churning away. I'll make this. This is on screen, is it?
Yep.
Yep, good. You can see it churning away at the bottom there. I think I can drag that down. No, I don't seem to be able to. It's there somewhere. This is Windows 10, by the way. It's quite entertaining because the Windows have no borders. But you can see it's told us a load of stuff about itself, and then it's told us what it's actually doing, what its input is, what its output is, a bit of metadata and so forth that it's found in the input file. And then you probably saw it ticking away as it processed through the file, and it's actually finished now. So somewhere there I should have forgot to open the Explorer window, my apologies. Documents, ATV, CAT15. This is the bit where we have some sound. I won't play all of it, but this is the original file. Playing off screen, that's handy, isn't it? Just a little bit of wind noise on this one. And you can see it's not brilliant quality video, it's just me with my cheapo camera playing away. And here is the file that we just created using FFmpeg. And you'll notice there's a bit of pixelation and so forth. I've not done anything in terms of setting the quality parameters or anything else. There's 1,000,001 options I could have specified. It's a bit of rural Wales, by the way. That's the view from the front door. Yes. The estate agents sell you this view, and you can see this, you know, see in a little corner, but that one really does live up to it, doesn't it? The key here is the size of these files. View. And what we've got there is the AVI file that I've created is just 10 meg compared to 95 meg for the MP4, so it's actually downsampled it a lot, compressed it a lot more, hence the pixelation. But you saw how easy it was to do. It's just made an AVI file. Well, heck, you used to have to spend a fortune on software to do that. Well, this does it. So there we go. I think it's a brilliant tool. So that's a very simple example. Then we got on to a slightly more complicated one. This is a dumbed down, I hate to say it, version of the command line that is running at the far end of the hall there. I got my kickstart for this from Rob DTS, so I think it's fair enough to give him credit for that. Interestingly, he told me last night that he's now pinched it back from me, because I've done the conversion from Linux to Windows, and he's now pinched that script back to run on the Pipo, so it's give and take, great. But without going through that in too much detail, FFmpeg, that's the format and the input for the video, that's the format and the input for the audio, that's the two direct show devices that vMix exposes. We'll see more of that later. Then we're saying we want to produce Mpeg 2 video, obviously, for our transport stream. Colour space, frame rate, frame size, aspect ratio. Quality, that's basically for the Mpeg 2 encoder to know what range of qualities to use. That's quite broad, in fact. You can specify a fixed quality if you want to. This is all to do with buffering and bit rates. There's the audio codec. It's just 2-channel 128K. Far more than we need, really, isn't it, for DATV? And here we specify the transport stream, network ID, stream IDs, service IDs and so forth. These will all depend upon what you're actually sending to, and In our case, the receiver will actually pick up any PIDs that it finds in the stream, but we specify it because that way we get a faster switch over on the repeater from one of us to another of us. Otherwise the receiver can take a while, or it'll come up and actually somebody will have no audio, which is really frustrating. Seems to pick up the video stream all right but misses the audio. And then just for completeness, so that if Ofcom are watching, they can see exactly who's sending it. And that final line, the -y says yes, so that if anything is not quite understood by FFmpeg, it'll just say yes to it. You know, do you want to overwrite this file? Yes, without having to actually press Y. And the last little bit is where we're sending it to, and it's streaming to the local host 127.0.0.1 on port 1958 in that format, UDP format, with that packet size. That was another little gotcha. DATV Express requires a packet size to be specified that is a multiple of 188. Otherwise it won't sync and you just get this huge long list of errors coming up on Express server. One of those peculiarities. That's 7 times 188, I think. Check the maths if you like. Anyway, while we've been talking, FFmpeg has been busy streaming away in the background in this window. And this is a slightly more complex version of this command line you see there. I won't go through all the details, but you can actually see, I'll point at the screen because you can't see the shadow on the black. There's the metadata coming up that I specified in that command line, and it's Mpeg 2 video, it's YUV 420p, I'm on this line here now, 640 by 480, so it's all the stuff that I've just specified down there, just coming up, confirmation that that's what we're actually sending. And it's just ticking away, and what it's actually sending is this vMix video. You might notice the chap there is looking a bit stationary. The reason he's looking a bit stationary is that I haven't got a green screen behind me, or I could have had a camera on me. So this is a still that I took from the other end, but you get the idea. I could be sat there with this thing on screen behind me and then bringing in the video in full. So that output of that going out through the external port there goes to FFmpeg and then would normally go to DATV Express, but instead I've got it playing in vMix, which we heard about yesterday, I think, didn't we? vMix, VLC, sorry. So that's just our standard VLC player playing the UDP stream. That could equally be off on the receive end of somebody's TV, broadcast transmitter link, whatever. The video for those that are interested is how to make not tarama salata, t'other one, hummus, from the local head chef at the Anglesey show last year. So there's a more complex example. If you want help, FFmpeg-H formats will list all the formats, decoders will list all the decoders. There's a huge amount of stuff there. That is the answer. There is online documentation. It is incomplete. It is hard work. This is the way to get it. This is the way to find out what's done. You can read the source code if you're really keen. What we're doing. Where do you get it? Well, Linux will usually have one or the other of FFmpeg or libav included. If you get the wrong one, if your distro has libav, and I think Ubuntu now does have libav, which I find doesn't work, it may do now, I don't know, the last time I checked it didn't. Not for generating a valid Mpeg transport stream with Mpeg 2 in it anyway. If you get the wrong one, you can get binaries from ffmpeg.org. Just look for the right thing. Or if you're really keen, you can learn to compile it yourself. Windows, this guy maintains up-to-date builds, both 32 and 64-bit, so whatever flavour of Windows you're running. This is now running Windows 10, it's been running Windows 7 for the last few years. I've not tested it on 8, I never made the step into 8, that was a bit of a leap of faith in my view, so I know it works on both of those. It'll also run on XP, so same binaries just work. Nearly there. I will just give you one word of warning. Zerano's site carries advertising and it has these horrible fake buttons on quite a lot of the adverts. You've probably seen it on other open source software sites. Be very careful not to click on them because they usually download something horrible, quite often a Trojan of some sort. If not, it'll be something that will claim to clean up your machine or do some horrible housekeeping and generally messes it up. Where does it run? Ubuntu and derivatives, usually one or the other. FFmpeg is definitely available for both. Raspbian, it's available, but you have to compile it from source yourself if you want to make use of the hardware encoders, which is frustrating. I don't know why the mainstream version doesn't include that, because to be able to run FFmpeg and produce H.264 video using the hardware encoder would be fantastic, and just to have that available to everybody would be even better. I've seen it run, and the difference is 2 frames a second if you're doing it on the processor core, or full 30 frames a second running with the hardware encoder. And Windows, as I say, 32 and 64 bits available. That's an interesting gotcha. I did this one last night. When you build it, you can choose to include or not different features, and if the version you download doesn't include the feature you're trying to use, it ain't going to work. I found this out when I tried that version of FFmpeg that came with vMix, and it just wouldn't do any of the graphics overlays. Frustrating, but as I say, you can always build your own. It's not that hard. We've touched on the first two. SOX is another very useful toolkit. Command line again, just audio. Brilliant thing. You can do all sorts of echoing and effects, and you can even get it to strip out all the gaps in your audio if you've got someone interviewing or something. It'll just automatically take out all the silent pauses. Brilliant. So another useful tool. And there we go. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Any questions? And I guess what we're going to hear this
Early on a
afternoon
Sunday.
about vMix this afternoon is very much going to be how to use it in a practical sense.
Yes, well, you've had a quick glimpse of it there, but yeah, the FFmpeg will recede into the background, and we'll focus on vMix today, later on. Right.
Good. Okay. Are we ready for the next show?
Okay.
So,
Can I scroll on